Previously on the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
I think we're at the point now, Chris, where you let me know what we're going to be reading next month. And I have no idea what you're going to pick, so I'm excited.
Yeah, 8th Doctor. So I'm going to expose you to a new TARDIS crew.
Oh.
And we're also going to have a new author to this version of the podcast. It's a book that apparently features quite a bit about the EU, which is going to be in the news, I think, in 2019.
Prescient.
Well, let's see how prescient it is, because it was set in the near future. We are going to read Trading Futures by Lance Parkin.
And now our story continues.
Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London.
And Sophie Iles from Bristol.
We have a new voice. Hello.
Hello, Sophie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. This month we are reading Trading Futures by Lance Parkin. It's an 8th Doctor book. But before we do that, we've got a few things to talk about. Let's start right off with Sophie. You are joining us this month because you have a new work out there that's Doctor Who related, Mild Curiosities. Can you talk about that?
So Mild Curiosities is kind of a brainchild of mine since we had Doctor Who on Twitch. Those not in the know for Doctor Who on Twitch, it was a way of watching the classic Doctor Who series relatively in order, which was being shown, I think it was 3 times a day, every weekday for 6 weeks. And they started off with the first series with The Unearthly Child, etc., all the way up to the 7th Doctor series. And I really created a real buzz on in the fandom. I actually was able to introduce a lot of new people, people who hadn't been watching the series for a little while or had been a bit disheartened perhaps. And it was really nice to kind of recapture a spirit that I think has been a bit downtrodden a bit recently, or at least before Series 11 returned. And yeah, it was absolutely lovely. It was a massive buzz, particularly for the first series, where I didn't know it was going to work. Doctor Who on Twitch, I didn't expect everyone suddenly to fall in love with Ian and Barbara Wright the way that I had already. And I decided it'd be nice. I've had a few friends in the creative industries that I've been working in who'd created fanzines. They did one for a Dogs Trust here in the UK, and it was all art based around dogs, which then they put forward to a Dogs Trust charity. And I was like, you know what? That sounds really interesting. Maybe we should do something similar for the first Doctor series. Everyone seems to be loving that, and Ian and Barbara were my favourite characters, and it would be nice to focus it. And it just kind of kicked off. People were really interested. I got quite a few people pitching, Chris being one of them. And it was really nice to be able to go, yeah, let's do this. So we're taking pre-orders at the moment, and it's all going really well. So it's all very exciting. Basically, that's the long and short of it.
And which charity did you choose for it to benefit?
Because Jacqueline Hill died of breast cancer in the 90s, we decided to aim it in that respect. So it's for Breast Cancer Now, which is one of the biggest breast cancer specific charities in the UK. And they've got a really nice mission statement, which they want everyone who gets breast cancer to live and live well by 2050. And it just seemed like such a nice thing to do. Yeah, considering Jacqueline Hill is so much loved by the fandom as well, and we feel her absence almost, I feel. it's quite nice to be able to do something dedicated in her name. And she would have been 89 the other day when we actually announced the release of the pre-orders and the digital downloads. So it was nice to do it for an anniversary as well.
Yeah. And Chris, how did you get involved in the project?
I saw it on Twitter, and then I was listening to the episodes of Death, and I thought, yeah, let's put a pitch in. So I did, and I was lucky enough to be picked. Also, I was really, really chuffed on a personal note to have a Doctor Who story published. Which was just fantastic. It just made the world to me. So thank you very much, Sophie. It was it was just brilliant.
That's cool. I mean, it was quite nice actually, because when it comes to Mild Curiosities, there were at least 4 of the writers, yourself included, who'd never written for anything before. And it was really nice to be able to be like, hey, look, these guys can write as well, you know? Like, these guys like Doctor Who as much as, you know, because I'm one of the co-editor with me, James Boychuk, who's been an absolute dream to work with, because he was able to, because he has an independent publishing company himself. So he was like, well, I can help you with anything that you need to set this up. And he was wonderful. But he also wrote a story for it, which I love and makes me close to tears every time I even think about it. It's like, just scorning the sky every time I think about it. But that's really good. I do recommend that one a lot. But it was quite nice. He wrote a story for Obverse Books not long ago for the Faction Paradox realm. So there are ways of getting into writing Doctor Who, but when it comes to the charity stuff, you know, you don't have to have had a lot of experience. You just need to have the passion and the drive and the story to tell. And it was just quite nice to have people come up to me and go, I want this story that I want to tell. And I'm like, yeah, go for it. I'm happy with that. So it was really nice. And everyone was very good writers. I wouldn't have included anyone who hadn't written well, because I had the balance of James helping me look into the writing and make sure that everyone we had the know-how to write. It was amazing. We got so many lovely story pitches and some really fascinating ones. So it was good. I was really chuffed myself. Yeah.
One of the things I really like about the collection, and I have to admit I haven't read it yet, but I've paged through the digital version, is I really like the variety. So there's, not only is it prose work, but there's some poetry, there's illustrations between each of the different stories, and I really like how the book is structured, how it's kind of chronological through Ian and Barbara's life, and it brings in elements from the expanded universe, like Johnny Chess, for example. So I think that's really clever how it was put together.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we wanted to include really kind of a variety of stories around their lives. So we weren't going to limit anybody, because it was also the kind of notion of people who didn't believe that Ian and Barbara did get together at the end as well. If people wanted to, we were more than happy to have stories that didn't result in them together. But everyone wrote things where they ended up together. So it was like, oh, okay, let's, continue that theme and make sure those Johnny Chess stories are included, if that's the way people have pitched to us, which they did. So it was really, really nice. To be honest. And also with John Dorney's wonderful introduction, where he basically was like, yep, they're together. I was like, okay. Well, if John Dorney's saying they're together, I can't really do much about that. But no, it was very nice. So
excellent. Wow, it's a great project, and like you said, for a wonderful cause to research and fight breast cancer. So thank you so much for putting it together and for coming on the show and sharing that with us.
That's okay. Thank you for inviting me.
Chris,
yes,
what do you have for a show and tell this month?
Well, apart from the fact that I've been published, which I was boring my relatives over Christmas by just kind of showing them screen grabs of my kind of author's bio, and they was going, "Oh, what? Wow, you mentioned your rabbit." So I'm going to go for something that has a very, very tenuous link to Ian and Barbara. My mum lives next door to a family that have Doctor Who connections.
Okay.
In crew-wise rather than cast. We don't live next to the Davison Tennant household. But one generation worked on Christopher Eccleston's season, and another generation worked on An Unearthly Child.
Wow.
And the Daleks. And we were cat-sitting for them over Christmas, and this cat that has been touched by the hands that helped design Christopher Eccleston's costume was coming in, coming out, and then suddenly at these random times the grandfather clock would start sounding, not on the hour, not on the half hour, and we've been forever kind of thinking, right, what's it? And my mum was saying, are we in a Mark Gatiss episode? And we kind of expected something to start emerging from the basement. Yeah. So that's my show and tell. It's the spooky Doctor Who cat. Anyways, I'm sure I could think of a better show and tell than that, but that just felt very fresh.
Are you sure the grandfather clock wasn't a TARDIS?
Well, who knows? Right, so Matt, what do you have on show and tell?
So I'm very much looking forward to the 6th annual console room, but by the time you hear this, it'll be long over. So hopefully I will have fun stories with Katie Manning and Neve McIntosh to regale you with in future months. But my show and tell this month is something else, and it kind of ties in, Sophie, to what you had mentioned earlier as an inspiration for Mild Curiosities, and that's it appears that classic Doctor Who is returning to Twitch this month.
Ooh.
Or will have returned, according to the schedule on their channel, Twitch Presents. Their Pokemon marathon, which they've been working through for like several months now, concludes on January 4th, and then on January 5th, they have it penciled in that classic Doctor Who will have started back up again. So by the time this episode goes out, we should, if it's true and they stick to the schedule, we should be well into the Pertwee era. So excited that that's coming by again, and hopefully even more fans will discover the wonders of London 1965.
That's amazing. I hope that's true, because it was such a... I tell you now, I know I mentioned it briefly, but when I heard about it, I did not think it would work. I genuinely was just like, is it really going to work? Which is a very different audience to most fandom, that most people in the fandom that I knew, and yet it was able to really spark interest. And then obviously Twitter got onto that, so you had people tagging Doctor Who on Twitch and giving their impressions of watching the episode, and it was wonderful. I really cannot express. I mean, I've spoken to Matthew Toffolo, who's one of the parties involved in getting it up and doing their little like intro videos beforehand. I've told him already, like, basically without Doctor Who on Twitch, I wouldn't be freelancing. Like, I wouldn't actually be living my life doing art and writing as a freelance thing. Before Doctor Who on Twitch, I was working in a call centre, scribbling doodles before I went home, knowing which ones would be aired, and then be drawing them whilst it was on, posting them. By the following day, I would have hundreds more followers, which then led to people wanting commissions based on their own doctors, and it was outstanding. I cannot. It's really hard to explain. I have said to Matt, like, it's strange how something which seems so, it's really hard to explain, but it's strange that something that's so kind of connecting to all the fan base was able to completely change my life in the space of 6 weeks. So, you know, it's odd, very odd.
Well, I hope this becomes like an annual marathon, and then you can just continue to have like an influx of new fans, and that'd be wonderful.
I just keep promoting more fansy and just go.
Before we get into the book, Sophie, do you want to share how listeners can find Mild Curiosities if they're interested in ordering a copy?
Yeah, sure. So Mild Curiosities has its own website. So it's mildcuriosities.bigcartel.com, where you can find all the details about buying the digital download or the physical pre-order. You can get a bundle, which is the physical pre-order and digital download as well. So if you want to, you know, read it now and wait for your copy, you can do that, or you can just order the physical or just have the digital order. Digital downloads, I only know it in pounds, so you'll have to forgive me. Sorry for that. So the digital download is $4.99, and then the digital and physical package is $21.99, and then the pre-order on its own is $19.99. There is shipping on top, so do check it, and it will vary from where you are in the world, but don't worry, we'll have a look into that if you are interested. And any problems, you can find me on Twitter. I am Sophie Iles Tweets, so SOPHILES Tweets, and I'm on Twitter quite a lot of the time and can be easily found if you have any problems or queries about Mild Curiosities. So
cool. One thing we should mention too is that it joins like a long line of Doctor Who charity works that have been going on since, I want to say, at least the late 80s, early 90s. So like titles like Perfect Timing and Perfect Timing 2, The Cat Who Walked Through Time, Seasons of War, Missing Pieces. So joins a long line of great fan works for charity. So thank you again for putting it together.
That's okay. And also, while we're on the topic of charity anthologies, I'd keep a lookout if you're interested in that sort of thing, because there are a couple of things I'm aware of coming up that will be very exciting for a couple of people. Particularly me. I'm excited, but I'm in it, so I'm hoping to. I'll keep it under my hat for now, but do keep an eye on what's going on in the fandom, because there's at least 2 that I'm aware of that will make you all very excited.
Excellent. Some new series discussion. We should mention, too, that we're recording this just before the only Doctor Who that we'll get in 2019, television-wise, is going to be airing. So Doctor Who Resolution, the New Year's Day special. Last time we spoke, we had seen through Kerblam, and since then we've seen the final 3 episodes of the series. So The Witchfinders, It Takes You Away, and the Battle of Ranskor Av Kolos.
Well done.
So, finally, unless I had it written down in front of me, I wouldn't have remembered that one, the title. But what do we think of these latest batch of episodes? And I guess because Doctor Who Resolution is separate and it's being released separately, what do we think of Series 11 as a whole?
Who wants to start?
Yeah,
Me. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Well, it's difficult, isn't it? I find Series 11 really interesting. I really like Jodie Whittaker. I really enjoy the companions, especially Graham. Graham's my favourite. I feel personally, that's the thing I would like to actually add before I go on to explain what I don't like about Series 11, is that it's all subjective. It's all subjective to how you feel about it. Because I found discussing with fans, especially online, you can't hear the kind of, it's really hard to explain, but you can't hear the person behind the words. So if someone writes Series 11 is boring, even if they have a particular reason to say this thing, people like scream and shout and they get quite irate and they're like banned and blocked and all sorts of things. And I feel like critique, particularly of anything that we love, gets quite difficult if you're that defensive. And I've had to learn myself over the course of becoming part of the fandom and all that sort of thing, that my opinion is just my opinion. I'm not trying to make everyone else feel the same. So with Series 11, there's so much of it that I love. As a whole, I love Jodie Whittaker. As a whole, I love the companions. I even like the new TARDIS. I like Sonic Screwdriver. There's lots that I do like. But I feel like as someone who invests in stories, I feel like these particular stories, there's merit in them. And I feel like, especially like, I quite liked Kablam in places, and I really enjoyed It Takes You Away, again, in places. But I always felt myself hungry afterwards. Like it didn't feel like as satisfying a meal as I wanted. And I can't explain to you what that absence is. I wish I could tell you. I just sit there kind of hungry for more, as though I've been given a very gourmet like nibble, and I'm like, oh, this is good, but where's the rest? And it's really hard to explain what it is exactly I'm missing. But as a whole, I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to enjoy New Year's Day because I know that I've enjoyed what they've given us so far. But I'm also kind of hungry for more. So I'm hoping this year break, however they've scheduled it to actually be filmed and sorted and what have you, will give them that like time to be like, okay, this is a really good idea. How do we make this the best version of that idea? Instead of what feels like at the moment, they've gone, this is great. And then they've just kind of, I don't know, they've just kind of gone, well, this is great, we'll do that, but not really elaborated on it. I don't know. But that's what I think about Series 11, but I have enjoyed it. I'm just looking forward to seeing how that carries on into Series 12 and hope that helps, hope that they've been able to reflect as well and see if that will help.
Yeah, I'm right there with you because I agree. It's good, but it's not completely satisfying, I guess, in some respects, in that I think the thing that might be missing is just sometimes I feel like the stories might need another rewrite or two from the plot perspective. The latest ones that we're talking about, so like Witchfinders, that was my favorite of the season, and I really also enjoyed Ghost Monument, which I know was probably a little bit more divisive, my least favorite was probably It Takes You Away, but even then there were elements of that I really enjoyed, and same with like the Pating episode. I think I liked that one a little bit more than most, but for me, I think the finale was a little underwhelming. One of the things that I didn't care for this season was like the lack of consequences for a lot of the baddies.
Yeah.
Including like the kind of the Donald Trump stand-in played by Mr. Big. And even in the finale, the two Ucks that committed genocide on 5 different planets, but because they had like maybe a religious deconversion, or they realized that their faith was misplaced or misguided, and they've found a conscience before wiping out a 6th planet, which happened to be Earth. Suddenly it was all okay. And it's like, well, that's interesting. You wouldn't have seen previous doctors just kind of walk away from that, I guess. And it happened several times.
So, I mean, you saw Matt Smith walk away having destroyed a son, the Rings of Akatar. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. There was certainly, I agree that there has been a lack of consequence.
You don't seem to have the righteous anger that I think like David Tennant might have been known for, the no second chances kind of thing. And I know it's, different doctors have somewhat different moralities and such, but I'm loving the music, the acting, the new anamorphic lenses. And I like that they tried doing, no returning monsters, but somehow the whole is a little bit less than I was hoping for. And that could also be because, coming off of Moffat and his plots were maybe more overcomplicated. It just seems like it's maybe a step backward in the narrative, maybe, and maybe not a full step, maybe a half step. So I'm still, on board, looking forward to what they do for Series 12. It was good, but it feels like I said last month, foundationally they're building something new, and we might have to give it a little bit more time to see what it all looks like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris, what did you think?
Yeah, I think mostly all of the above. Yeah, so some of the script. Like the Witchfinders, I adored the Witchfinders. However, my mum is from Pendle Hill. Yeah, I was likely to love that or hate it. Though I did have this kind of surreal conversation over Christmas of sort of my mum was sort of saying, when you were enjoying that, it would have been your ancestors being dunked in the water. So I was like, oh, right, okay. But yeah. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. Fascinating history of Pendle Hill. I'm glad it's got wider exposure. Yeah, I hope next time we have a bit more of an arc. Though, I mean, I did love the character arc of Graham. Graham and Ryan were fantastic. And I do just hope that next time round, if Yaz sticks around, there's more of a focus on her. But also, I can't see how you can have either Graham or Ryan on their own.
I really hope we get a lot more development of Yaz next season, because it felt like we got to know her extended family a lot more this year than we got to know about her specifically. And I think too, like, it's great that Graham got, a hero's journey or an arc, that's really motivated by a long-term fridging of his wife over the course of an entire season, which has some problematic elements. But it's weird too, because I almost wanted like the Doctor to have that hero's journey or that arc and not Graham. But that is kind of antithetical to like New Who, in that the companions almost as often get those, you look at Rose or you look at Amy, and they go through arcs. Even Donna and Martha did, to a smaller extent. But it wasn't at the expense of the Doctor. Was also at the same time going, like the Ninth Doctor, dealing with his Time War PTSD survivor's guilt, and then Moffat really puts a point on that in the Day of the Doctor, the 50th, in terms of how the Doctors have changed dealing with the decision they made in the Time War. And so you were able to get both, and I feel this season it was very much slanted towards just to the companions, and the Doctor was almost a facilitator for their growth, where I'd like to see her have her own.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's refreshing that we don't have a broken Doctor finally for the first time in several series. So that's nice too. So it's a difficult line to walk, I think.
I think it's hard as well because you've got, with Bradley Walsh as an example, he is quite a well-known figure here already, and he does a lot of work for TV. He does The Chase when he's not on Doctor Who. And my feeling is that we won't have him for long term, because very much in the sense of Catherine Tate as an example, we had her for one series because her career has taken off and done other things ever since Doctor Who. And I feel like with Bradley Walsh, it's the same. And actually, his career has spanned, I think he was in Law and Order and all sorts of things before Doctor Who. He's actually quite a talented actor. And you can tell with his acting how good he is. So what I would have liked to have seen with Graham is, I like that he wanted his revenge with Tim Shaw and everything, but it felt quite rushed. As in, the moment he knew he was alive, he wanted him dead, and he felt a little bit out of character for a little while. What would have been nice, because the Doctor's like, you can't do that. If you kill them, you have to leave. Which I found quite interesting, because the Doctor's killed hundreds of people. I was just kind of like, you had Leela on your ship, mate. And you were like, yeah, you're pretty good at that. I was like, but if Graham wants to kill someone, it's a problem. But no, and for quite a valid reason. But what I found with the whole scene with Graham and Tim Shaw, what I found interesting was how much interesting his character would have been if he had killed Tim Shaw and then lied, or something like that, just to kind of give that kind of everyone is a little bit grey. Graham's been lovely the entire time we've had him. You wouldn't believe he could do it, and then the moment he's like, no, I want to do it, you don't believe he would. So then when you have that moment with Tim Shaw, you're not thinking he's actually going to do it, even though he keeps saying he is. It would have been nice if he actually had. It would have surprised everybody. And then for him to lie and say, no, I didn't do it, would have been really... Because you don't see Tim Shaw again anyway. It's not like it could be revoked. But then you have that feeling as an audience member of, well, if he can lie to the Doctor, what else can he do? And adds that kind of element to him. I mean, that's what I would have done. I always find that quite fascinating with what would you have done if you had written that episode, or... I think for me, that's what I would have done with Graham. But I would have layered it so that you think this wonderful, almost perfect companion almost that we have is not quite as, black and white as you think.
Yeah, that sounds like a far better idea than what we've had.
Yeah.
But that's what, like you were saying with the episodes, it feels like they've gone with their first idea.
Yeah.
And the first idea is fine, but you could develop that. And you'd expect because it was supposed to be a writer's room, you would have thought that more voices would have helped, but perhaps in this situation, there was almost too many voices, or maybe a voice that they didn't elaborate on each plot. I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, we can't be flies on the wall to how these were actually written. Apart from that, they were people who hadn't written for Who before, some of them anyway. So I don't know. It's fascinating to me as someone who writes and works with writers and all that stuff. Like, well, how did this work? How did this hunger come from? The hunger that I'm looking for. How did that get displaced? Why didn't anyone speak up? And it just interests me as a process.
Yeah, good thoughts. Well, hopefully with resolution coming up, we'll see maybe a return to form, and then next year too, with the extra year or so off we talked about earlier. Hopefully we can see them make some progress in that regard. That would be nice.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Chris, anything else you'd add before we move on to the book for this month?
No.
All right. So this month we're reading Trading Futures by Lance Parkin. Lance Parkin is probably most well known for his Doctor Who tie-ins and his reference works like A History of the Universe. He's written some spin-offs for Emmerdale, and he worked on that series as a production assistant. And he has a regular column called Beige Planet Lance in the Doctor Who fanzine Enlightenment. And he also got his start with the unofficial fanzine Seventh Door. His first professional novel was Just War, which was a Virgin new adventure, followed by Cold Fusion, which was a missing adventure crossover with the Seventh Doctor and the Fifth Doctor, and both of those novels were adapted by Big Finish. He also wrote the last ever new adventure, The Dying Days, featuring the Eighth Doctor and Benny, and he wrote the final Eighth Doctor adventure, The Gallifrey Chronicles, in 2005, as well as a novel featuring the 10th Doctor, and his character of Miranda from Father Time was spun off into her own short-lived comic book series. There's a passing reference to Miranda in this book, and he's also written for the Time Hunter series for Telos and the Faction Paradox series for Mad Norwegian Press. So,
yeah, a busy guy.
Yeah. This is my, I think, second book of his that I've read. I've read Cold Fusion. I don't know, Sophie, if you've read anything else by him or not.
Honestly, I haven't. No, this was completely new to me. I've not even read an Eighth Doctor novel yet. I've listened to some of the audios. So you are getting me on like the most newbie noob moment of. So yeah, so so very entertaining for me because I was just like, I know of it. I've definitely heard the title. So I was just like, right, I'm gonna go look into this. And I knew of Fitz and Anji already through other people. So I was just like, oh, okay, time to get to know these characters then.
This was my first experience with Fitz and Anji as well. This was published in April of 2002, and it's release number 55 of 73 in the Eighth Doctor range. I think this book in particular does work somewhat well as a standalone. There's a few references to kind of series arc stuff, and we'll talk about those when we get to it, but I think it's something that can be experienced on its own. It's not super tied into the main range. It's its own novel. And then the cover and elements of the story are spoofs of or tributes to the different James Bond movies. The book features 20 chapters and a prologue, and the prologue is called The Banquo Legacy, which is a reference to a Doctor Who book of the same title from a couple years earlier. And there's quite a bit in this book that Lance Parkin gets right when it comes to economic and political situations in 2018. So it's to an extent, yeah. Some things he gets right, some things he doesn't. He anticipates that the Concorde gets retired, I think, a year and a half before it actually happens. So that was good on him.
Yeah, so it's good to kind of set the scene a little bit. This is kind of set sort of a few years into the 21st century, probably around about 2030. There or thereabouts, given Anji's age. We'll kind of go on to that a little bit later. You have two major kind of factions. You have the United States and you have the Eurozone. And they're sending kind of peacekeeping missions into places like North Africa. There's general kind of tensions, basically kind of like a Cold War. And we encounter a chap called Baskerville who claims to be a traveller from the future, wanting to sell his time machine. We also encounter Jonah Cosgrove, who is the Scottish head of the Eurozone Secret Service. Basically, imagine Sean Connery.
There was a quote from Lance Parkin when the novel was released where he says he describes Cosgrove as the Sean Connery Bond, but one who never retired and who's been a secret agent for 50 years. So he's about 80, and all that time he's just been piling on more muscles and getting more wrinkled, and he's even more set in his ways and bitter and anachronistic. He's Sean Connery from The Rock, as drawn by Frank Miller, and been promoted to M.
Yep, pretty much. And also, when we're going on likenesses, Baskerville is Ian Richardson, who you may know from the original BBC version of House of Cards, Francis Urquhart. Because Lance Parkin had a thing that he always wrote the actor Ian Richardson into all of his stories.
I didn't know that.
Funny.
Yeah,
I had a difficult time kind of telling Cosgrove and Baskerville apart. I don't know
yeah,
why.
me too.
Same here. That wasn't just me then. Oh god,
No.
thank God. Because I was really going, what? Because they're both described as elderly or like crotchety old men. I was just kind of like, hang on, who am I? Oh, okay.
One of them has a time machine that he's trying to sell, and one of them's trying to buy it. But apart from that,
Yes.
they're very similar.
Similar, yeah.
Baskerville occasionally gets described as Aquiline, which is how he always describes Ian Richardson characters. So, yeah, at which point I think you're probably both frantically Googling Ian Richardson if you've not seen House of Cards. But,
I'm sure I've seen House of Cards.
Yes. But anyway, so Cosgrove, he's kind of investigating Baskerville's claim, and they encounter... So they kind of like take the time machine for a test drive, and they encounter the three witches from Macbeth, and they have a kind of. He gets this 11th century arrowhead. That's an important little arrowhead that we need to keep an eye on as this book continues. And so he's been kind of convinced by Baskerville's claims, but so insists that he needs to have somebody kind of verify the machine, and sort of Baskerville agrees, and then Cosgrove participates in some kind of how do you describe it? It's kind of like very fancy helicoptery flying thing. It sort of encounters a guy playing with a yo-yo. And so, yeah, the Doctor has entered proceedings. So basically, with the yo-yo, a cricket ball, and quite a few other things, Doctor manages to overpower Cosgrove, nicks a briefcase, and escapes. It's a bonkers scene. It's great fun. It's a James Bond pre-credit sequence, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's fantastic. And sort of Cosgrove is kind of like unimpressed by all of this, and he wants to wreak revenge on the Doctor.
Yep. So after all that, we get down to the nitty gritty of it. So the TARDIS arrives in 21st century Earth at a Mediterranean resort, and the Doctor's. Obviously this has all kind of happened by this point, or is about to happen. It was a bit confusing at first because it did kind of bounce around all these elements quite quickly, and I was just like, have we just arrived, or has the Doctor snuck off? I don't really know. But anyway, he finally returns to Anji and Fitz after they've been chilling out. I know they definitely had dinner, and they were quite fascinated by the fact that the menu was all on an iPad, basically. Fitz was like, oh, this is interesting, and Anji was like, oh, it's not that appealing at all, which I again found quite strange. I don't know. You don't know these characters that well yet, so for me, I was like, is that really what they'd be like? I'm not sure. But they meet up with the Doctor again, who has his briefcase, and he's just like, I need to find out what this is, in a very Doctor-y sort of way. And it has the arrowhead inside, and obviously for the Doctor, he's a time traveller, so he doesn't know whether he's contaminated the arrowhead that is in there, or if it was time travelled already. So he wants to find that out, because it can't be carbon dated and all that sort of stuff. And he decides to give the briefcase back to Cosgrove, but the invitation that's inside the briefcase to go to Athens, he changes over to take them somewhere else. So he actually diverts Cosgrove to go to a theme park, which I believe was called Lunar Disney, which made me laugh a lot. Which he was just like, Lunar Disney, let's go. So they know that people will be looking for the case, that he sends Fitz towards Cosgrove, and then him and Anji go off to the real location, which is Athens, but they leave the TARDIS in Heathrow and go on a plane. So yeah,
the theme park that Fitz gets sent to is Neverland Ranch, which I don't think it's open to the public or that it even exists anymore. But
that's what I thought. I was thinking that was strange. I was like, Neverland, and then I realised exactly what it was. Yeah,
I love the bit about Lunar Disney though, because they never name the owner of Neverland, but they say that he's gone off to Lunar Disney, but it's just mentioned in passing in dialogue. So it could be somebody just sort of said, instead of saying, yeah, he's died, oh no, he's gone off to Lunar Disney, like they're being sarcastic. And it's not, because Michael Jackson's alive when this book's been published.
Of course.
And it's like, okay, that's unintentionally clever. Also as well, there's an odd little bit about the TARDIS. The TARDIS is somewhat smaller, kind of like for arc reasons. And there's something kind of scratching at the back of a wall, which we find out, I think, in about sort of 2 years worth of books later, Lance Parkin goes back to explaining what that is. I shan't mention it here, but you just got to go, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Fitz has like a conversation with the TARDIS about it, and the TARDIS is kind of like, I'm not telling you nothing. That's all I got from that scene was Fitz is like, I'm concerned about you, TARDIS. And the TARDIS is like, yeah, what up, bro? It's fine. Just get out. You need to go.
This was my first time reading a book with either Fitz or Ange, and it's interesting. So, like, Fitz is from, like, the mid-1960s. I don't know if he's quite a hippie or if he's still kind of in, like, the beatnik movement or what his... So that was interesting. And then Angie is from...
the 90s, right?
Early 2000s, I think, maybe?
Yeah, early 2000s, yeah.
Like 2000 or 2001, maybe. Her references are all, like, contemporary, but it's things like flip phones and things that even now are dated. And then real quick on the political thing with the U.S. and the EZ or the European zone, I've heard some people speculate that these are the two factions or blocks that are in Warriors of the Deep, which is a Fifth Doctor story. So... I don't know if Lance Parkin was like pulling from that.
Well, the European zone is also mentioned in Enemy of the World, which...
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure I sat there going, "That's so cool!" when I read they called it the Eurozone, but I'm sure the EZ was also the short name for the European Zone in Enemy of the World, which is set in 2017, or at least the helicopter is supposed to be checked in December 2017 or 16 or something along that line. So everyone's just like, "We're in the future, people." So.
So maybe all this political kind of machinations is like left because there was a power vacuum left by Salamander, and that's why everyone's scrambling.
I mean, to be honest, there are moments later where Baskerville did remind me of Salamander, so you never know. But anyway, we'll get to that later. But yeah, I just went, I need to make a 60s connection to Doctor Who. It must be done.
Exploring Neverland in California, Fitz participates in a real war battle, which at first he assumes to be like an electronic arcade game, but later he realizes that he was fighting in an actual war somewhere on the planet using remote-controlled robot tanks, which is really interesting and kind of scary. And then he meets an American woman named Milady Chang, but fails to realize that she's a secret agent. And she's been keeping an eye on Cosgrove, but has now taken more of an interest in the mysterious man, so the doctor, who blew up Cosgrove's yacht in the opening sequence. And there were also 2 trench-coated strangers who attacked her earlier with a laser gun, unlike anything she's ever seen on Earth. So Milady plants a tracking bug on Fitz and learns of the doctor's plans to attend a meeting in Athens, and she decides to follow the doctor.
And if you think that Milady Chang is a Bond name, nothing in comparison to what I'm going to have to say. Next bit. So we've got the Doctor sends Fitz to Neverland, as you're saying, so Cosgrove is there, and he arrives with his associate, a quantum physicist called Penny Lick. It's like, what? I mean, this is in the Pierce Brosnan era of Bonds, when you had I can't remember when The World Is Not Enough came out, whether this was just before this, when you had Denise Richards playing a nuclear physicist called Christmas Jones or something, which has a horrific Christmas pun that I'm not going to sully our ears with. Yeah, it's like, yeah, Lance Parkin, you have thought of a whole load of James Bond names, so we're putting them in here. So yes, Cosgrove and his quantum physicist friend sort of catch Fitz spying on them. Fitz, there's a bit of a kind of like a set too, and Fitz is kind of confronted by trench-coated strangers, and they scan him for temporal energy and realise that he's a time traveller, and then, rather wonderfully, they realise, oh yeah, he's the Doctor, which I thought was great. And so the strangers take Fitz's spaceship, where they remove their human disguises and reveal that they are Onia. There's a rhino-like alien race. So basically, it's the Jadoon.
How now, brown cow?
Yes.
How now, brown cow?
Yeah, and they're trying to discover the secret of time travel. So yeah, it's a bit Silver Nemesis, a bit sort of
Smith and Jones, yeah.
Yeah, Smith and Jones, and a bit James Bond. So yeah, they have come to Earth to discover time travel.
So while that's all going on, while Fitz is pretending to be the Doctor, and we've got these 2 factions and the Doctor off doing his thing. Yeah, it's just mad.
Yeah,
like,
these
I really
books are a bit mad.
I did feel like I was going, wow, a lot's going on. So the Doctor and Anji arrive in Athens, and they run into Milady Chang. Actually, interestingly, I wasn't sure how to pronounce Milady until she said that her parents wanted to call her Milady because they saw something they wanted her to be a lady. Oh, I get it now, Milady. Yeah, it makes sense.
Milady Chang has a different connotation, I think, entirely.
Yeah, exactly. It's so strange. But they bump into Milady Chang at the airport, and they take a taxi to meet Baskerville. And they are apparently unaware they're being observed, and not just by Milady, but by 2 actual time travelers, Jaxa and Roger. Is it Roger? I'm not sure. But they have time ported to the 21st century to investigate the unauthorized sale of temporal technology. So they're basically like, Baskerville and Cosgrove, you guys, we're following you. But then when they see the Doctor, they conclude it's his fault. So they decide to follow him, they must stop him and eliminate him. So you've got like 5 plot points all going on at once. It's just like, oh man, like it's fun. It's so fun. But I'm just like going, this really is like James Bond with the Doctor just thrust in the middle of it, going, yeah, time and travel, the future, and to do. They basically need to stop the Doctor. They, understandably, if that's their job and they think the Doctor's involved. I mean, I would think the Doctor's involved.
It's weird too because the time agents, they remind me a little bit of like, you know, Captain Jack and Captain John, but then Roja, she's like woman and probably in her 30s or so, but I think, is it Jaxa who's...
He's like a boy.
Like a 12-year-old kid, yeah.
Yeah, he's like a tiny child who gets very irate and very tight because of the fact that he's a child. Like, he doesn't control his emotions very well later on. But yeah, which is a surprise, but we find out more about him later as well.
So the Doctor and Anji are greeted by Baskerville's personal assistant, Dee Gordon, and the Doctor introduces Anji as his assistant, Milady Chang. And Baskerville takes Anji into the sending room. So they're in a office building somewhere in Athens, where he pours her a cup of coffee and he invites her to choose a period in history. She chooses Brussels in 2001, hoping to send a text message to Dave Young, who was her boyfriend, I think, in previous stories. So, again, not super familiar with him, but he apparently dies or something happens to him.
Yes.
And so she wants to send him like a text as a warning, telling him not to do whatever he's going to do.
Yeah.
And then the Doctor is disturbed when Baskerville seals the room behind metal panels, claiming that the time energies have to be prevented from escaping. So the Doctor can't really see how Anji is time traveling. And then he asks Anji to take a look around, and she's surprised that she's already traveled to she's like in Brussels, and it's as she remembers it in her memory. And there's buildings that she's looking at, and they're familiar. So how's it pronounced? Atomium building in Brussels, and so she recognizes that. And
oh, you're being a coward. There's also the mannequin piece. Do you know what that is?
No, what is it?
It's this lovely statue of a little boy peeing. It's a fountain.
Oh, I didn't know what that was. Okay,
Yes.
so she sees that. Okay.
It's one of the sites of Brussels, from what I understand. I've not actually been to Brussels.
Okay. And then she's kind of confused by what she's seeing, and so she starts to suffer from a seizure, but then she hears Baskerville kind of talking her down, saying that like this is a side effect of her time journey, and so she recovers, and she exits the room she was in and tells the Doctor that the time machine really does work and she traveled to Brussels. I don't know if they ever really pick up on the text that she had claimed to send, or if...
Yeah, considering the text is, Dave, there are Star Wars DVDs somewhere. Go there.
Yeah.
I was just like, that's a great way to deploy someone from doing something else. Quick, go get that nerdy thing. Go. You cannot go, because obviously I don't know the actual situation with Dave, so I was assuming like he was either supposed to go out because of where he was going to be, he's going to die, or so I just imagine just getting this text going, go to this place, they have DVDs. I'd be like, is this normal? Your girlfriend sending you texts about where to go get your nerdy gear? Because that sounds good to me. I also I think it's just momentarily after this where the Doctor's talking to Baskerville about his time machine, and he explains that she's got like time sickness, or she was unwell because of the effects of the time machine, and the Doctor's really smug. It's just like, well, that doesn't happen with my time machine. He's like really smug about it. I really enjoyed that bit. It was really funny.
Yeah, we might want to talk about like the characterization of the Doctor at some point, because he's almost presented in some instances as superhuman. Like there's a few instances where he's doing feats that you're thinking, wow, depending on which Doctor and who's writing for them, this is either in character or extremely out of character. Things like shooting bullets out of the air.
But he's James Bond in this story. You know, he's the James Bond, not Cosgrove. So he's got to be stopping bullets. And
so whilst the Doctor's studying the time machine, Dee lets slip that she and Baskerville are going to be heading off due to the third prophecy. And Baskerville has been making certain predictions about the future in order to prove his story. And one of these is that on that day at noon, Athens is going to be struck by a kind of a tsunami, and thousands of people will die. And the Doctor has a kind of quick chat with Anji, and Anji will kind of stay behind and sort of look into the time machine, whilst the Doctor will kind of go and warn people about the tidal wave.
The whole fact that he predicts that what will happen to Athens happens really reminded me of Salamander so much with the Eurozone, and it's in the future, and he's just like, this is going to happen, and you need to listen to me. And I was just like, Salamander, I'm just waiting for
Oh yeah.
for Patrick Troughton to appear. Like, what? That's what my brain went to every time. But anyway.
And it's round about this point that we're going to be having this month's reading, isn't it?
The Doctor needs to get out of the building quickly. So Anji says he's an imposter and claims to be a secret agent. And she wasn't expecting Baskerville to then throw the Doctor out of the building. So 23 stories up. So this is where our dramatic reading for the month comes in. It's read by friend of the show, Bill Evenson. You can catch him on the Frankenstein Minute podcast that he runs, and he's also on Reality Bomb. He's one of the spoiler cops. So Here's our dramatic reading by Bill.
Anji smiled. The Doctor tapped his lip. Now, we just need a way to get me out of the building. The door opened, and Baskerville stepped in with their chauffeur. I'm sorry to press you, but we really need to get away from here. My yacht is moored near here, and it will take about an hour to get it clear. Anji stepped forward. Baskerville, I have a couple of things to tell you. First of all, I'm not EZ. I'm CIA. Baskerville looked shocked. CIA? Central Intelligence Agency. I'm an American agent. You are? I think we can cut a deal. I'm operating on the direct authority of the President himself. Whatever the EZ is offering, whatever you want from them, we can give you more. Anji could feel the Doctor was glaring daggers at her, but that didn't stop Anji from feeling smug. Besides, her masterstroke was coming up. And this Doctor isn't EZ either. He's an independent operative, the man that stole Jonah Cosgrove's briefcase. He's an imposter. Baskerville looked over at the Doctor. Is this true? Anji leaned into the Doctor and went on tiptoes to whisper in his ear. That should get you out of the building. It was around then that Baskerville had his man throw the Doctor out of the window. The Doctor fell about 25 feet, about 200 less than he was expecting to, then resumed his fall at a reduced speed a moment later. Milady, the real Milady Chang, not Anji, had been climbing up the building on some sort of polymer line. He'd grabbed a handful of the back of Milady's sweatshirt. This had broken his fall, but the impact dislodged her, and they found themselves heading straight back down her climbing rope. What the hell, Milady asked, grabbing at the line, feeling the material of her gloves starting to fray. Hello again, the Doctor said cheerfully. He wrapped an arm around her neck and a leg around her until they were inseparable. That had the result of tipping them over. Now they were almost horizontal. How did... Mind the glass, he warned. Shards of glass were falling along with him, sparkling in the morning light. You jumped out of a 23rd story window? I don't know which story it was, the Doctor admitted candidly, and I was thrown out. I didn't jump, but yes, that's the gist of it. Can we discuss this later? The line wasn't designed to carry their combined weight. Milady was sure the piton at the end of the line would hold, but wasn't confident they'd slow down enough. She grabbed a little harder, saw the Doctor about to grab the line. No, it'll take your hand off! The Doctor stuck his free hand, the one that wasn't grabbing the back of her shirt, in his coat pocket, then clutched at the line. They slowed down, glided to the pavement, landed with quite a jolt. Milady grabbed for her gun, but it wasn't there. The Doctor handed it back to her. You'll need this, he said, absent-mindedly examining the damage to the lining of his coat. After a moment, he looked up at her. Now, you've probably got a few questions, and I'd be happy to... Milady knocked him unconscious with the butt of her gun.
And that was our dramatic reading.
Before we move on, should we just say a little bit more about... Because I think Sophie and other listeners who don't know about Frankenstein Minute would be quite interested in the concept.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, sure. So Frankenstein Minute is Bill's podcast where he is, along with some friends, watching all of the Universal Studios original Frankenstein film from the 1930s, but they're watching it minute by minute. So each podcast, they examine 1 minute of the film.
Oh, wow. That's insane. I kind of love it, but that's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. 1 minute.
Yeah, and I guess there's a few podcasts that have been doing that with different movies and such, where I think they've done it with some Star Wars films. And
wow, I'll check that out. So after the Doctor gets thrown out of a 23-story window, Melody Chang is scaling the outside of the building, and the Doctor grabs her as she falls past. I feel like when I read that bit, I literally felt like I was in a Looney Tunes cartoon. I was just like, okay. He grabs her, and she's still hanging on to the building, and she's still able to hang on.
Her character reminds me a little bit, and I think it would have come out by now, right? When is it Michelle Yeoh's character in Tomorrow Never Dies?
Yes. Yeah, I think there's a sequence I haven't seen Tomorrow Never Dies in years, but there is a sequence that's vaguely like this as well, I think.
Nice. I have to watch it. I haven't seen it, I haven't watched James Bond since Skyfall. Oh no, what was the sequel to Skyfall that my brain is not remembering?
Spectre?
That's the one.
Yes.
I think the last film I saw was that, and that was probably about a year or two ago. So I should probably watch those again. I mean, I'd like to watch them from the beginning anyway, because 60s Bond is great. But yeah, I have to check it out. But anyway, as the Doctor falls from the building, he's able to grab onto his savior, really, Melody Chang. Unfortunately, though, as they get back to the ground, they slide down together from the building. And even though he has to go and warn the authorities about Athens, she decides to knock him out, to interrogate him, which means he doesn't have enough time to warn the authorities about the tidal wave. He does convince her that there is actually a danger, but it's too late for them to get to high ground. So they head for the nearest bank. Now, I have to admit, when I read this, I was like, this is actually pretty clever. They go into a bank, they claim they're trying to break into the bank, and then they put everyone in a safe. So he's like, I've not done this before. I've not broken into a bank before. And I'm like, you will in the future. But for now, you break into the bank to hide in a safe. He announces it's a robbery, but then it tells everyone to get into the safe, your biggest bank vault. And everyone who's there in the bank who actually gets into the bank vault just before the tidal wave hits, which is pretty exciting, really. That's one of my favourite scenes, is the Doctor just like, I have a woman here. This woman's name is Melody Chang. She doesn't need to know my name. By the way, you've got to get into this bank vault now. I don't think I'd believe him, if I'm honest. Kind of, even if it is Paul McGann, to be just like, what?
Oh, yeah. It is crazy. There's a lot going on in this book.
You said the right word there, almost. Movie.
It is like a movie. It moves like a film.
Yeah.
So at this point, Baskerville's trying to escape because he knows Athens is going to be destroyed. So he takes Anji out to his yacht, which is, super sophisticated and outfit with all sorts of spy technology. And he demands to know what the U.S. can offer when only the Eurozone has access to this computer system that he wants, which is called Ultra, which has to do with, it's like the banking and finance backbone for the world. So he's asking about that, and she's bluffing, claiming that the U.S. has backdoor codes which will enable him to get access to that system. And upon arriving on their yacht, they tune into the news reports about the disaster, and Anji realizes that if the Doctor failed to get the city evacuated, that he's most likely dead, and that's if he survived the fall from the building, because she isn't even sure about that. And Baskerville, who is kind of quiet because of all the loss of life, orders Anji to contact the President of the United States. So she does so by using her mobile and just ringing up, the White House directory. And by using the secret name Milady Chang, she's able to get through to him. And Baskerville offers to trade blueprints for a working time machine in exchange for access to Ultra, and that he'll only deal with the president personally. And they have to meet in Istanbul in Turkey in 24 hours' time. The call is, because it's on an unsecured line, is monitored by the Eurozone agents, who can't understand why an American secret agent is, contacting the president on an open channel like that. And they're also confused by Anji's accent, which Cosgrove can't identify because it's influenced subtly by all of her travels with the doctor and stuff. And I thought that was kind of a cool scene where they get into like linguistics diagnosis of how she's speaking. And then as Cosgrove's thinking through this, the Eurozone agents spot the doctor and Milady in Athens, exiting the bank, and he decides to deal with them both personally.
So have we forgotten about the Judoon? Yeah, let's check in on the Judoon. So the on-ear, the not Judoon, they're believing Fitz is the doctor, right? And Fitz is playing along with this still. And so they're torturing him for information. But rather cleverly, their pain inducer is kind of reminding him of memories of past pain rather than actually causing him to feel pain. So he promises to kind of tell the on-ear all that he knows about time travel. They've managed to acquire some kind of ceremonial rows of high collars and skull caps. So basically they can look like Time Lords. And they've also heard of the name of Sabbath, who was a recurring character around about this time in the books. Sabbath was at one point being implied to be the Master. The on-ear are nervous about Sabbath. And one thing they're very curious about is why is the Doctor so interested in Earth? And Fitz tries to kind of explain it, but just goes, yeah, no, I can't. And so the on-ear sort of conclude that he's telling him lies, and so they decide to invade Earth to find out what's going on. Fitz is just brilliant.
That was a great sequence.
He's so funny when it's supposed to be the Doctor. I mean, one of the things that I like about Fitz is I've read a few books with Fitz, but sort of earlier on in the Eighth Doctor's timeline, he just comes across as just a regular bloke who just kind of gets caught up in events and just goes, let's do this. And he often doesn't really go for the heroic option. He just sometimes, and he's just muddling through.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a moment where Anji's wondering how Fitz is doing and thinks he's still sunbathing on a beach somewhere.
Yes, yeah.
And it kind of like, yeah, just from what I've read, I imagine it's the kind of thing he would do. Like, the Doctor's like, could you just pop over there and just not do anything? Yeah, sure. Where most other companions would be like, but what about you? Oh, no, I'll be fine. And then they just follow the Doctor anyway. Fitz would probably just be like, I'll just stay here.
Yeah.
It's safer. And then we'll still get caught up in it anyway.
Yeah, he was a fun character. I'm trying to think like what companions he reminds me of, and it's like a laid back, chill version of Turlo, or maybe Harry without the sexism. Well, although there is a bit of that because he's from like the early '60s, but
We're back with the Doctor and Milady now. They open the bank vault that they've got themselves in. I seriously think of the Indiana Jones fridge moment. That is what that made me think of.
Yes.
They open the bank vault and everything's devastated. I think there's a moment where there's an old couple in there worried about their families, and you're just like, Baskerville's a douche. We should do something about him. We don't like him at all. So they drive through the streets of the ruined city, and they see real war teletroopers cleaning up the debris. And they ask if the Doctor could have presented Milady's like quite frustrated that the Doctor could have perhaps prevented the disaster if the fact that she hadn't knocked him out. I think even then the Doctor wasn't sure he'd be able to stop it, so they're kind of on this kind of even keel. But they're still trying to see if they're going to look for the time machine that was in Athens, which was there with Baskerville and Anji, because he believes it might still be there, or something might be still left there. And then Cosgrove is following them, and Cosgrove is supposed to be the head of the Eurozone Secret Service, but in fact his true loyalty is to Britain, and he survived the Euro Wars and the Martian invasion and the fall of Learman, which are things that don't mean anything to me.
Time of Daleks.
The Martian invasion, I know.
Yeah.
But, okay.
It's the audio book, so the audio played Time of the Daleks.
Ooh, cool. That's cool. I was looking into that. Because Cosgrove is involved, it means that they know something really serious is going on. So when they return to Baskerville's offices, the time machine is actually still there, but the coffee machine is missing. Even I was just like, save the coffee. Save the coffee. You need caffeine when you're going. They're expensive. Anyway, so...
At this point, Jaxa... So we're back with the Doctor, and Jaxa and Roja confront the Doctor and Milady and attempt to arrest the Doctor for trying to sell unauthorized time machine technology to the Eurozone. However, so they scan the room with the missing coffee machine, and they're not able to detect any time spillage. And when Milady reveals that it's nothing more than like an empty box with some flashing lights, we realize that there's something more going on here with the time machine. And when the time agents are distracted, Milady overpowers them, and she and the Doctor escape, only to find Cosgrove waiting outside of the building in a helicopter. And he tries to shoot at them, but this is the scene where the Doctor takes Milady's gun and starts shooting the bullets that Cosgrove is shooting right out of the air to protect them, in a very kind of James Bond moment.
More like a Matrix moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say you're Superman or something, because you need special powers to be able to do that. Roja pursues them outside, but Milady overpowers and disarms him. And okay, so Roja's the younger time agent, and then uses his energy weapon to shoot out the tail of Cosgrove's helicopter, forcing him to retreat. So the time agents have like these really high-powered laser guns that can pretty much take anything out. And then Milady and the Doctor flee to a nearby museum to kind of hide out and figure out their next move. And then Jaxa and Roja, the time agents, have another priority. They have to recover the laser weapon that Milady stole. And they talk a little bit about Sabbath and how he recruited both of them to join their time agents. And it's almost like a pirate ship setup where Sabbath is like the pirate captain, and Roja is like the cabin
gangs.
boy. Yeah,
So,
they talk about like press gangs and
which were real things that were happening in the 18th century.
not just a Stephen Moffat series.
No, very different Stephen Moffat. So so Sabbath's reach is kind of like throughout history. So it's quite interesting.
A section about the overall arc, I guess. So it was...
Yes.
But there isn't a lot of that. It's maybe one or two scenes in the book.
We also have a really cool image of Sabbath on the moon with his coat kind of like flapping in an impossible breeze, which I just love that image. I can see why people at this stage are kind of thinking, "Oh, he's the master," because he certainly feels like quite a menace. So left to her own devices, Anji is searching the yacht for the time machine, and then catches him speaking on the phone in an Eastern European accent. And she realizes that Baskerville's not quite what he seems. And he's actually from this time. And he's a former general in the Russian army, and also he founded Real War. So basically he's an arms dealer. And he's selling teletroopers, these arcade machine-y kind of tanky things, to both the US and the Eurozone. And he's kind of getting proceeds from the booths, because the best soldiers of this era are computer game players. And we're not far from that, really, with people operating drones and stuff in real life. So Baskerville's one of the richest men in the world, and he's also erased all evidence of his existence from the world's computer systems, which is just like the guy from Dalek, the Eccleston story, isn't it?
And what the Doctor did, too.
Yeah. So effectively he doesn't exist. And Anji realizes that Baskerville's manipulating the US and Eurozone into declaring war on each other for him to maintain his hold on the market, which is very similar to the plot of Tomorrow Never Dies, where the US and China are manipulated into declaring war on each other for profit. But he has greater ambitions than just that, it would appear.
Meanwhile, our other plot points are still going on. So you've got Cosgrove and his men storm the museum that Jaxa and Roja time port into. And the time agents, they're wearing like these, like I think they're described as purple, but they're like bulletproof suits. But our special Scottish James Bond-ish character shoots Jaxa as she materializes, which actually I thought was quite an interesting way of killing someone. and she then materializes around the bullets and so is fatally wounded. So the 12-year-old boy time ports her back to her home base, hoping that she can be saved, and then shoots down most of Cosgrove's men and flees upstairs. And there, the Doctor and Milady surprise and overpower him, remove his helmet, and taking his time porter and Jax's gun. When Roger admits that he is actually Sabbath's cabin boy, the Doctor claims that Roger is a phantom imagined into existence by Sabbath. So he's like, oh, he just doesn't exist. And the poor 12-year-old just starts screaming that he's real and that he exists and that he must exist. But as the Doctor and Milady try and time port themselves to safety, Cosgrove arrives and shoots him in the head. And it's just, you're sat there going, what? You're just screaming, I exist, and the Doctor's like, no you don't. It's like, I exist, and then you just get shot in the head. It's just a really random moment. Like, it's quite powerful in a way because it is just so random. You're just like, you wouldn't expect them to go like that. I mean, for me, I was just sat there like, oh, okay, bye. He's at 12.
Kind of shocking, especially his age, and that's one of the things where, like, I think especially in this era of the books, I think there's a little bit of leftover kind of the shock and awe from like the Virgin run, where it was like, let's introduce all these like sex and violence elements that aren't necessarily present in other forms, that Doctor Who takes. And I think that some of the stuff like killing a 12-year-old kid is kind of a carryover of that. But then again, you have something similar happen in Thin Ice with Capaldi, where one of the kids dies. So at this point, Cosgrove assumes that the Doctor and Milady, they've used Jax's teleporter rod, so they've left the scene. Cosgrove sends his men out after them, but in fact, all the Doctor and Milady did was leap forward one day exactly in time. So they're still in the museum, but it's a day later, so it's empty and it's still kind of shut down from the tidal wave and everything. But they are a day in the future. So the meeting with the president, where he's been traveling, for some time to get to Istanbul, they're much closer to that. And so Milady contacts the president, who recognizes the Doctor's voice, because the president is Felix Mather, who the Doctor once hitched a ride on his space shuttle. So I thought that was kind of cool to have I wouldn't mind having a president who was an astronaut. I think that would be a much needed improvement for current state of affairs.
Also, Felix is a character in Father Time. And also, I guess as well, it's a slight pun on Felix Leiter, who's a James Bond recurring character who's American, who kind of comes out and helps. But I say, I've read Father Time. I have no recollection of Felix Mather from it.
I wasn't sure if like the space shuttle was a reference to like a previous book or audio, or if it was just like an unseen adventure or what. So the Doctor explains the situation, and he asks President Mather to find out what Baskerville's fourth prophecy was. So the tidal wave was only like prophecy 3 of 4. Some of the earlier ones were like a famous actor died and he was able to predict it, and I think it was like an outcome of like a sports match that he was able to predict too. But there's some sort of fourth big thing that's going to happen that they need to find out about. President Mather's on his way to Istanbul, but when he enters his hotel suite, he finds Cosgrove waiting there, who had traveled from Athens over the kind of the missing day. And then Cosgrove suspects that Baskerville is playing the Eurozone and the U.S. off against each other to drive up the price of the time machine he's offering. And since President Mather is the only politician who Cosgrove really trusts, he suggests that they share the technology between themselves to become the new Lords of Time. And Mather agrees on the condition that Cosgrove tells him what the fourth prophecy is. And so Cosgrove reveals that in 4 hours' time, a civilian nuclear device will accidentally detonate in Toronto, destroying the city. I wasn't even aware that these were a thing, and maybe they're not, but have you heard of a civilian nuclear device? Like, they use the example, like, in case you're trying to build a road and you need to get rid of a mountain in the way.
No.
Yeah, I don't think it's a thing.
Yeah.
I think there's enough protesting about fracking going on. I think if people were using nuclear bombs to kind of, clear mountains, I think
You know about it by now.
Yes. Well, unless it's been used in China or Russia or something. But
Yeah. So Mather contacts Milady with this information, and the Doctor uses the late lamented Rojas or Rogers or however time porter to travel to Toronto, hoping to prevent the disaster. However, as Baskerville's admitted to Anji, these prophecies are all fake. So he fixed the outcome of the football match. He murdered a young actress to make it look like she died unexpectedly, which was the second prophecy, as you alluded to. And he planted the bomb that triggered the Athens tidal wave. And he says that he's going to try to kind of bring the anarchic global markets under control, but his plan hasn't taken into account all the variables. So, for example, the Not Jadoon preparing to strike the Earth with an EMP cannon to disable all the electrical equipment in the world, because we don't have enough threat and the plot threads going on.
Exactly.
Yes. As the Not Jadoon are preparing to attack, they detect that the time porter is in use over in Athens. And so Fitz convinces them to delay invading Earth whilst they scan for other signs of time travel. They locate another kind of device and person that's traveled through time, and they prepare to teleport down and confront them.
So yeah, and it just goes on from here. Just goes on. The international community is outraged when an American game player hacks into the real war system and overrides the safety protocols and shoots up a school bus in Tripoli. The president, however, is meeting with Baskerville in Istanbul, is unaware of the situation. Baskerville is surprised to find Cosgrove and Penny Lick waiting at Mather's suite and insists they all travel to the airport so they can take them somewhere safe to conduct negotiations. Mather agrees with the terms. Before they can depart, the Not Jadoon to teleport in and attack Anji, take her mobile phone, and kill Penny Lick and the president's bodyguard. Actually, when that bit happened, it was gross. I was just like, oh, that was a lot to happen. I think we see it from, because it's written in third person, but there's moments where you see it from different points of view, and it's from Cosgrove's point of view when he realizes Penny is killed, and he just puts, like, his kind of thought about it was he is angrier than he was surprised at how angry he was, which I thought that was a really nice touch, because he comes across quite emotionless, really, Cosgrove, apart from, it's like James Bond, for king and country sort of thing. So his motivations are to protect the better interest of Britain or what have you, and then for Penny to then get killed in front of him, for him to be surprised that he's angry, I thought was a nice touch. But Cosgrove then shoots the non-Jadoon leader through the mouth, piercing his soft palate, hitting his brain and killing him. It's gruesome. It's gruesome, not gruesome. It's gross and gruesome. But then the remaining two non-Jadoon panic and teleport back to their ship, where Fitz reveals that although the phone is a machine which has travelled through time, it is not itself a time machine. Actually, again, that bit was quite nice, because Fitz knows it's Anji's and is kind of like, did you kill the person holding this? And he's really anxious about it. And they're like, no. It's just like, oh my God, Anji's still alive. Their now new leader, the non-Jadoon new leader, refuses to give up on Earth now that they've killed their leader, and vows to avenge their leader's death and destroy the Earth. So it's just gone from bad to worse in Fitz's mind.
We also learn that, like, these non-Jadoon have really long lifespans, something like 25,000 or 30,000 years, which is weird to think about. So it's this, their leader dying is a huge thing that they didn't anticipate, and they're kind of slow to come to like a realization of it, because they're thinking through what they should do next, but it's their thought, because they're such long-lived species, their thought process is really slow and deliberate, and it's not quite like Ogron levels, but it's you can definitely tell that there's a nice job describing like these Not Jadoon in their society, and how they have this whole thing like based on their hypersensitive sense of smell. So there's all sorts of little details that Lance Parkin works in about that.
They're a lot more interesting than the actual Jadoon.
Yeah. So with all this confusion going on in the bus shooting in Tripoli, Baskerville insists that they continue with negotiations, and they take the alien body of the non-Jadoon leader with them for study, and they take the survivors to his private hangar, where he has his personal stealth Concorde, which is painted all black and very James Bond-esque. And Baskerville allows Cosgrove and Anji to study the alien while he deals with what's going on in Toronto. President Mather's people have alerted the Canadian authorities to the danger, and a security clampdown has been kind of initiated, and they're trying to evacuate the city as best they can quietly. But that also presents some issues for the Doctor and Milady because they can't find out where this nuclear device is being stored. But they do know that it's being used for a construction project kind of down at the harbor front in Toronto, and they locate a warehouse which is owned by the company in question and is guarded by these, the real war teletroopers. So they're pretty sure that they found the right place. And Baskerville has the ability to, because he created the teletroopers, he's able to dial into every teletrooper in the world. He has like a override device. So he takes control one of the robot guards and kills the humans, and then who are also guarding the civilian nuclear device, and he attempts to detonate it. Milady's able to hold off the robots with Roja and Jax's laser guns while the Doctor defuses the nuclear device, and he takes the circuit boards out of a damaged teletrooper and he intends to use them to kind of trace the control signal back to its source. Roja's time teleporter is out of power, but the Doctor's able to use the plutonium from the nuclear device to give it enough energy for one more hop.
Before we move on, there's one thing I just want to say about the scenes in Toronto. I just love the fact that they just go up the CN Tower and just have a look around and kind of like, oh, where do we think the bomb will be? It is the kind of thing that would happen in a Bond. It's like, oh, there's a major tourist landmark. Let's just stand here and say, oh yeah, we are here in this foreign city. I mean, I guess there's a slight practical nature to it. It makes more sense than James Bond going up the Eiffel Tower in A View to a Kill. But still, it is it's a bit odd.
Yeah, a little random.
Yes, yeah. I've been to the CN Tower and I've been on the glass floor that they talk about. I was like, oh yeah, it's when you've got these little kids jumping up and down. I was like, no, don't do that. That's me and my fear of falling. Yeah, so back in the book, Anji is examining the body of the Not Jadoon and finds a communication device. And thanks to a telepathic link to the TARDIS, she can understand what they're saying, but only she can. And so Baskerville has her act as a translator and contacts the deputy leader, which is a little bit different as to how the translation circuit works in my story. Available in mild curiosities. But anyway, so Baskerville convinces the Honor to negotiate for the purchase of his time machine rather than just destroying the Earth. But in fact, he's really just buying time until he gets to his destination, which is a real war factory in the middle of Russia. And Anji sort of realizes he doesn't need Ultra to kind of calculate a path home. And then Baskerville admits that he's really trying to use the Ultra machine to kind of get into this thing called the IFEC, the International Financial Exchange Computer, but he doesn't explain why.
Anji, throughout all of this, when she's with Baskerville, he really is looking for reasons to kill her because he tried to kill the Doctor.
Yes.
And so her being able to do the translation helps make her valuable to him. I was glad when that scene happened because I was really worried about what was going to happen to her.
Don't kill her. But also, this whole time, she's wearing a bathing suit, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
She's still wearing a bikini. So she's basically just wearing a bikini this entire time. And she's just like, oh, God. Like, it's just like, she was wearing a suit. And then, to fit in on the yacht, because I think even Dee and Baskerville were, like, lazing around in kind of, like, holiday-like garb. And she was in a bikini. And I was kind of like, James Bond. At this point, as far as I remember, she's definitely still wearing a bikini. If not, she's not. She has still been wearing it for quite a while before finally being allowed to put any other clothes on. Poor Angie.
That's another connection to my story in Mild Curiosity, isn't it? Because that features swimming costumes.
Yeah, Ian in his pajamas. No, bathing suit. It's stripy bathing suit. Anyway, so this is where I actually got to with my reading. So the Doctor uses the time porter to reach the TARDIS, traces the source of the signal controlling the rogue teletroopers in Toronto, takes Milady to the real war factory via TARDIS, which is pretty convenient. So due to Baskerville's low profile, the factory's head of security, Relka. Now, I just met Relka. This is where I got to. has never actually seen him. And when the Doctor and Milady arrive unexpectedly, bypassing all security, Relka assumes him to be Baskerville and D. Yeah, I got here. When Baskerville's Concorde arrives, the Doctor orders Relka to keep everybody on board. And when the real Baskerville tries to identify himself, Relka doesn't believe him. Baskerville eventually loses his temper, activates the factory's new constructed teletroopers, and guns down his own security guards to clear a path to his office. However, Cosgrove and Mather have been watching the news, and Toronto's conspicuous failure to be destroyed has attracted their attention. Cosgrove thus slips out of the plane and makes his way to Baskerville's office, where he accesses the central teletroop control hub, overrides Baskerville's controls from the plane, and sends out the teletroopers to slaughter the staff of the factory and locate the time machine.
So a lot of death in this section.
I think it was this that moment where it was D who they thought that they didn't know what nationality D was. So like Relka was like, can you describe what D looks like? And it's like, is she Chinese? And it's like, this is what happens when you're too under the radar. People can pretend to be you because no one knows what you look like. And it was. I thought it was a really interesting part.
Yeah. So, while this is all happening, the international situation is deteriorating rapidly. So every major power has made a public statement denouncing the shootings in Tripoli, except for the American president, who everyone thinks is holed up in a hotel in Istanbul, even though no one can contact him or find him. His absence causes great concern in the Eurozone Council, especially when the United States Air Force sends spy planes into Russia to rescue the missing president because there is a nanotech tracer embedded in one of his eyebrows. So they're able to track the president that way.
Nowadays, they just check his Twitter account, wouldn't they?
Yeah, he's put on tracking. Location services on. Oh, it's okay, sir. You're at home.
And because they don't have any more information, the Eurozone Council is concluding that the Americans might be trying to launch a sneak attack and authorize an attack on American forces in the Mediterranean and North Africa. So they're kind of playing into Cosgrove's hands, as an arms dealer, trying to upset the political climate and make things worse.
Yeah, this is very much like Tomorrow Never Dies from memory. But yeah, so Fitz, remember him? He's trying to bluff the Not Jejune deputy leader into giving him a control pad, which proves to be extremely friendly and helpful. It's wonderful with the pad, and he calls it pad.
He calls it pad. I was just like, hang on.
Yeah, it's basically, it's an iPad. It's a lovely iPad.
We get iPhones in this too, except they're like Google Glass technology.
Yeah, and so the pad tells him all about the EMP cannon that Dion are going to be using, and it also explains exactly how to sabotage it. And so the deputy leader and his team, they head down onto Earth, and Fitz sort of sabotages the cannon, causing the ship to explode, and he's prepared to die for this. And then the pad sort of says, do you want to ask about how we can maybe teleport to safety? And he goes, oh yeah, oh okay. So it's just wonderful. It's very Douglas Adams, that bit. It's surreal.
So after that wonderful moment, Anji slips into the bathroom on the Concorde just as Baskerville loses control of the teletroopers to Cosgrove. He and Dee make a break for it, taking Mather with him, while the Doctor and Milady break onto Concorde and are reunited with Anji. Yay! The Doctor then sends Milady to destroy the base's anti-aircraft defences, so the USAF rescue team won't be shot down. He and Anji head back to the factory to find out what Baskerville's real plans are, but Anji has realised that a smart businessman like Baskerville would never just sell a time machine when there are so many better ways of making money with it. However, Baskerville spots them following and begins shooting at them. Then Fitz materialises and is reunited with the Doctor and Anji, and then Cosgrove's teletroopers arrive and open fire on Baskerville, as well as anybody else in their way. Then the non-Jejune land, so like literally everything happens at once.
Yes.
And able to locate Baskerville in the base, arrive in search of the time machine, and begin defending themselves against paratroopers. So it's just let's say free for all battle royale. Yeah. The Doctor's just like, let's get out of this. So yeah, that's what happened in that entire moment.
Yeah, You have all these robot troopers fighting non-Jadoon, and it's like this big space battle on Earth. It's crazy. And during all this confusion, Baskerville flees. He drops the coffee maker that he's been carrying ever since he left Athens, and the doctor examines it and finds that it contains nothing but coffee, which confirms his growing suspicions. So Roja and Jaxa, the time agents, they were unable to detect any time spillage in Baskerville's office because no time travel took place at all. And when the doctor questions Anji about her trip in detail to Brussels, she realizes that it was an entirely different kind of trip of the psychedelic variety, because now she has some time to think about it. She remembers she saw Thunderbird 3 launch from beneath the atomium, thinking it resembled something out of Jerry Anderson. So the coffee was drugged with a fast-acting hallucinogen, and you have Anji remembering all these like elements from Thunderbirds as part of her her recollection, which is kind of funny. And Baskerville guided Angie's perceptions to make her believe that she had traveled through time, and he has no time machine at all, and it was all just kind of an elaborate con or setup. And so the non-Jadoon and Cosgrove are not going to be happy about this when they learn about it. And I have to just say, for the record, I didn't think there was a time machine during any of this. Like when Angie did her whole thing and like the shutters came down, it seemed kind of obvious from the narrative like something else was going on here, and that she wasn't really time traveling. So even though that was kind of the big reveal, I kind of saw it coming like chapters and chapters earlier. I don't know if that was...
I had my suspicions. But I wasn't entirely... I wasn't certain. But I did find it odd that, like, for Angie's scenes in Brussels, we were only seeing little bits of it, and I was just like, oh, something's being held back here. Anyway, so Baskerville and Dee, so they force the president to grant them Ultra security access through Dee's laptop. And using Ultra, they program the IFEC, which is that international finance computery thing, to filter all financial transactions in the world through one account. And so Baskerville is now literally controlling all of the money in the world. And Malady rescues the president. When Relka nearly shoots Baskerville trying to stop her, Baskerville shoots him instead. So poor Relka gets killed by his boss. And Baskerville and Dee try to flee to safety, but they're separated. Dee manages to reach the airfield and escapes, whilst Cosgrove's troops are dealing with the Not Jadoon. And Baskerville, though, has been captured by the Not Jadoon, and he's trying frantically to stay alive by kind of claiming that the Doctor has stolen the vital components of his time machine, and it will work, honest.
So, yeah. And the Doctor, Angie, and Fitz find Dee's abandoned laptop and see that Baskerville was interrupted for the final step of confirming the transaction. So the Doctor first enters the IFEC number he was assigned when he inversely opened the bank account in Athens. So now every transaction in the world will be processed through his account, and Baskerville can't touch it. Cosgrove then confronts him and his companions in person, demanding that they give him the time machine. But the Doctor reveals the truth. He then offers the stunned Cosgrove a cup of coffee, and he and his companions escape, while Cosgrove is under the influence of hallucinogens.
That was a fun scene.
And also, because I've worked on financial transaction software, I can sort of say there's quite a few checks and balances in place to stop this kind of thing from happening. But then again, we're speaking in a country that was kind of ground to a halt by drones flying near Gatwick, so who knows?
Yeah.
And then, so to kind of wrap things up, Baskerville and the Not Jadoon capture Milady and President Mather, and then the Not Jadoon detect that Mather is carrying a time machine. It was the recharging time porter from the time agents, which Milady had given to him earlier. And assuming that it's Baskerville's, the Not Jadoon demand a demonstration, but Baskerville doesn't know how to operate it. Fitz, the Doctor, and Ange then arrive and denounce him as a fraud, and Fitz claims that Baskerville has destroyed the Jadoon ship, and that the Not Jadoon, still believing Fitz to be the Doctor, believe him. And that was kind of a fun scene where the Doctor has to like play along and be the companion to Fitz, which was funny. And then Baskerville is taken prisoner, and the Natchadun teleport themselves back to their homeworld journey, which will take several centuries just for the transport light to travel. And just as they dematerialize, the Doctor grabs the time porter out of Baskerville's hands. So Baskerville's, off with the Natchadun, and he's going to be in a transporter beam for centuries, which is a crazy fate. And then Cosgrove arrives, having shaken off the effects of the drugged coffee, and he demands that the Doctor hand over the time machine. And they're kind of on by a cliffside where, again, think, James Bond, where you have this robot factory and this runway, and right before the runway, it goes off over this cliff. So the Doctor tosses the time machine over the cliff, and Cosgrove leaps after it, thinking, okay, even though he's like 80 something, he's like, okay, if I can grab this rod that's falling to the rocks below, just in time so I can activate it and teleport away, not only will I have saved myself, but I will have also, have this time technology that I've been wanting all this time. But so he, as he's falling to the rocks, he, grabs the time rod, and he goes to activate it, and it gives him the error message, out of battery. So he splats on the rocks. And then the Doctor warns President Mather that the Eurozone and the United States have started shooting at each other, and full-scale war isn't yet inevitable. So Mather can use this base as evidence that a third party, so Baskerville, provoked this conflict, and then use Cosgrove and his robots as a scapegoat, so being able to de-escalate the tensions. And then the Doctor, Anji, and Fitz return to the TARDIS, which is also on the Russian base, because that's how the Doctor and Milady had traveled there. And that ends the book.
Da, 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 da.
Yes.
And now we have the James Bond Doctor Who theme.
Yes. Yeah.
Who would have sung the theme for this book?
Didn't David Arnold do a kind of a James Bond infused Doctor Who theme in the late 90s?
Did he?
Yes, I think he might have.
I know he scored for James Bond, and he did the Eighth Doctor Big Finish theme.
Yeah. Maybe that's where I'm thinking.
Maybe he did combine them, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what did we think about the book?
As you know, I didn't get quite to the end. I wasn't far off, actually. I wasn't far off all the main points at the end, but I really enjoyed it. It was like a bit bamboozling, like how many plot points were going on at once. And I had to remember at one point that the non-Jadoon were not the time travelers, that were Jaxa and Roja. I got a bit confused at one point and thought they were the same people, then realized they weren't again. I was like, oh. And also sometimes the way it was written, when they referred to Fitz as the Doctor due to the third person narrative, and they had it then from the non-Jadoon's point of view, all of a sudden I thought the Doctor was with them, then realised it was actually Fitz. And it took me a moment to get my head back into that frame of mind, that, oh no, this is their version of events, and they believe that this is the Doctor.
I had the same issue with thinking the non-Jadoon were the time travelers at first, because it was a little unclear that there was two kind of non-human / not of this time era parties kind of involved in everything, and with all the other groups and plot points involved, I mean, it certainly felt like a James Bond plot in that it was a little over complicated. One thing that bugged me a little bit was, and I had the same problem with Cold Fusion, so I think it might be Lance Parkin's narration. I found it difficult to engage with at times. It was almost kind of non-emotive. There weren't a lot of emotive beats in it, and it felt a little bit like reading an outline at points where it's like, and this happened, and then this happened, because there was so much to get in. I didn't feel... There were a few moments where I got into the story and I felt like I was a part of it, and there was a few humorous beats that were really funny, but overall it was almost like it was told in almost like a cold style, where the narrative's almost at arm's length and it's a little perfunctory, I guess, in that. I don't know if either of you felt that same way, and it might just be my own personal, not a super fan of Lance Parkin's narration style, but I don't know if either of you picked up on that or had different experiences.
I didn't really have a different experience, but I think I wasn't surprised because it's a Bond homage. Yeah, though I was thinking back. I mean, I think Father Time, he's quite emotive in that from memory, and also I think in the Infinity Doctors as well. But yeah, I think that's a fair criticism of this book.
Yeah, it felt like a James Bond novel as told by a Vulcan. I think it might be a way to describe it. And I thought like some of the early chapters too, there wasn't a whole lot of sense of urgency. Like you had a lot of wandering around, which I didn't mind because I liked getting like Fitz's reactions to 21st century Earth, and there were some fun moments like where he thought Exxon was a fake company. Why would there be a company with two X's in the title? And he thought that was funny. But
I also love the fact that Fitz realizes after a while that they don't know the name of the Greek island that they're on. And they just go, oh, yeah, I suppose. Doesn't really matter. And you get that in Bonds as well. I mean, sort of like in some of the Roger Moores, you have the kind of like early on, you would have like slow scenes where Bond goes to a race course to kind of just check out the villain. Yeah, I think it's part of the thing that he's parodying. So maybe I'm being generous.
I agree with you about the outline feel to it. It did feel very much like it was telling you a lot without showing you quite a lot of the time, but that could have been, again, a stylistic choice. I think I've read Casino Royale, and it does, Ian Fleming's sort of style with Bond does have that sort of way of thinking. From what I remember, it's been a long time. Yeah. So it does feel like this makes sense for the kind of story that we're telling.
My favorite scene in this was probably, it was near the end where the doctor, he kind of gets one of those famous doctor speeches where he's explaining how a time war would work in practice to Cosgrove.
Yes.
And you get these like brilliant moments. And I think at the time, of course, a lot of it was probably drawn on Genesis of the Daleks. And you had like the first time war kind of working its way through the books and stuff. But everything the doctor said could have easily just, with everything we know that has come since with like the War Doctor and I guess you'd call it the last great time war if you think there's more than one of them with what happens in the books. But all of what the doctor was talking about and how you just kind of keep trying to outdo each other and go back earlier and earlier and kind of the mess it makes. I mean, it could have been the War Doctor giving that speech or the Ninth Doctor too. It just felt really forward thinking in that it would apply just as equally well to what happened in the new series since this book was published.
That's cool. What I thought was interesting was I didn't necessarily feel like it was specifically an Eighth Doctor story that I was reading. Like, I don't know Fitz and Anji, so I couldn't really compare in terms of companions. But I did feel like you could have put any Doctor in that situation and they would have probably reacted the same way. But I don't know because I haven't read a lot of Eighth Doctor work. So I don't know if that's something that's book related or if I'm just reading it wrong, but I didn't feel like there was anything there particularly that I felt like, oh, that feels like Paul McGann's Doctor to me that would only do that one thing. I mean, obviously apart from the superhuman elements, but to be honest, I think that would have if that had been written for any of the Doctors, I think that would have still been like, what? So yeah, but I don't know if you guys agree or not.
Doesn't he at one point meet somebody and then like sense their future history in the same way as he does in a TV movie with that one chap?
Yeah, I think there was a scene like that in here. Yeah. This is only my, I think, third ever Eighth Doctor novel that I've read.
They find it hard in the Eighth Doctor books, I think, to have like a consistent character. So he then, because obviously they're basing it on a TV movie.
Yeah, of course.
And by this stage as well, I think only only a little bit of the Eighth Doctor audios have been released. So they've had some recent McGann that they can base it on. But he can be a little bit of a kind of like a greatest hits Doctor at times. It can vary from who's writing him.
So,
like an everyman Doctor sort of.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but a lot of people who want to write the Doctor tend to start with 8 and then add on other features. Ooh. Does that make sense? So, so for example, if you want to write the 13th Doctor, write the Doctor as though it's the 8th Doctor and then add on her mannerisms. Because he's quite a good Doctor to use as a base, which I felt very much the same for this. Like, I mean, I don't know if you guys agree, but I've heard someone say that to me before, where you use his Doctor as like a base Doctor because obviously he is the everyman Doctor, the one that will do anything you really need him to do. He can be angry, he can be sad, he can be happy, he can be romantic. You know, you have all those elements about him because that's what they were able to show in the movie and the audios, where some of the other Doctors have very specific ways of working. Like, okay, let's start with this type of Doctor. And then, okay, if we're putting a different Doctor in that scene, how would they play it differently, maybe?
I hadn't heard that before, but that's totally agree. I can see that for sure.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts about this one before we rate it? Anything?
No, I mean, it just feels like a kind of like a bank holiday Monday. It was a very UK reference, but it's the sort of thing that you could just read on a kind of like on a wet public holiday. It would just kind of, I think it will just kind of keep you entertained. Which is not a bad thing. I mean, it's, you know, is it a novel that I'm going to kind of like reflect on all its various themes? No. Did it keep me entertained on a long car journey at Christmas time? Yeah.
I would say it's quite short as well. I think it's only about 236 pages, so it's not actually as long as perhaps some other Doctor Who novels. It's a good base, because obviously I had nothing to go on, so I was just like, oh well, I'll try and read it. And then a friend of mine who I lent it off was just like, yeah, it's a really good starting point actually if you haven't read any Eighth Doctor before. So I was like, oh, it's a good jumping on point. So for that, it's because it's, as we said, it was a standalone sort of story. So for that, it did feel quite nice for me to be able to read an Eighth Doctor story without having to know everything about the Sabbath or everything about Anji or everything about Fitz. I like the story, so that's really my take on it. I did find it quite enjoyable in that way.
Yeah.
Read Alien Bodies.
Yes. I have lots to read.
Yes, but Alien Bodies, I think you'll find Fitz isn't in it, nor is Anji, but that is, I think, probably that's a very good Eighth Doctor novel that doesn't require a lot of background knowledge.
And it was adapted by Stephen Moffat. Sort of.
Yes, kind of. Yes.
I'll have a
Yeah.
The other kind of obscure reference in this book that I wasn't expecting was a reference to Death Comes to Time. So Felix Mather, the president, was Secretary of State during that invasion, which is, if you're talking obscure...
Although Death Comes to Time was a bit of a thing at the time, wasn't it? Because isn't that the animated one?
Yeah, the one-off that they did with Seventh Doctor, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Where Ace is like training at the Time Lord Academy and...
Yeah, because that was released round about the time that the book was published. So I think it's trying to kind of maybe tie into that, get people excited, and maybe hope that it might persuade. At the time in fandom, the thinking would be that the future of Doctor Who would be as an animated TV series.
Or sort of animated.
Well,
not even flash animation, but
No.
Yeah, stills almost. Cool. So how would we score this one out of 10? Shall we... Sophie, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's quite difficult. I don't usually do this. So I would say with the quite a few plot points, the kind of outline style, which it does kind of not make you as emotionally engaged, and the confusion between point of view points, I'd probably give it a 6 or a 7, maybe a 7, just because I was able to be involved and get into it quite quickly without any prior knowledge. And also, it was a fun read. I mean, I laughed so hard when the Doctor got chucked out of a window. I mean, so, it was fun. It did feel like it was supposed to be fun. It did feel like a homage to James Bond. It was that kind of thing. So I think if that's what it was set out to do, I mean, it wasn't set there to change the world and introduce you to a massive arc or anything like that. I feel like it was just like, this is just a fun homage to spy movies, but with your Doctor thrown in. So with that in mind, I think it did that trick. So I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Nice. Chris, how about yourself?
I'd say a 7. Yeah, 7's fair. Yeah, that's what I had in my head.
I had written down 7 out of 10 as well. Wow. Well, that's consistent.
Yes.
Funny.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's fun, isn't it? It's not amazingly engaging, but also, you're not reading it going, no, you can't write. Who let you write this? Which is a thought that I may have had once or twice on at least one previous book that we've read. Yeah, it's good.
And I liked, too, that even though you're like book 50 whatever out of 70, it does feel relatively standalone, so you those additional references, if you get them, they're great, but I'm sure there were plenty that I missed in the narrative where they're like talking about this book or that book or the other, because they bring up lots of examples, but it was never done in a way that made you feel like, oh, I'm missing something. It's just like, oh, that probably referred to something that I could go look up if I wanted to.
Well, with the Eighth Doctor books, they did make a conscious decision to kind of like about halfway through to reset it. So you have a book called The Burning. And so, because the Doctor, for kind of like pretty much the second half of his run, is amnesiac, or at least doesn't have all of his memories. And so, therefore, you don't have the all-knowing, all-powerful Doctor, which also means that we're not quite as steeped in continuity. And also, quite a bit of the continuity has changed as well because of events of a previous book. But yeah, so they kind of like they learnt the lesson not to kind of like put layer upon layer on top.
I mean, there's things like the Doctor only has, I think, one heart. He's lost one of his hearts at this point, so that becomes a plot point. But again, they explain it enough within the context of the narrative where you don't feel lost.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's move on to listener feedback then. So you can email us at andwbcpodcast@gmail.com with any questions or comments, and who knows, we might read out your email on the podcast. And speaking of email, we got an email this month from longtime listener Shaggy, or Shag, who is host of the Fire and Water podcast, which is Firestorm and Aquaman podcast. So I'm sure he's had lots to talk about with the movie coming out.
He's had a busy month, yes.
He corresponded with us for a bit on Twitter about Doctor Who Magazine Reader Awards for the original novels, and sent us a follow-up email with more detail, and he kind of went through his old DWM issues and poured over the polls for each year's book awards, which were voted upon by the readers from 1997 to 2007. And back in 97, DWM posted an overall ranking of all of the Virgin New and Missing Adventures. They never did an overall ranking for all the BBC 8th Doctor and Past Doctor books, but they did rank the books for each individual year that they came out. So, for example, Face of the Enemy, which is a book we read featuring the Master, came in 7th in 1998 in the category Other Doctor Who Novels. So I purposefully didn't want to look too closely at the polling data because I didn't kind of want my views of the books to be too influenced by popular opinion, but it was still really interesting. So thank you, Shag, for sharing that kind of historical data of kind of where fandom was at the time. It was really cool, and he also writes that it'll be cool to meet up in person, which, yes, I will be at Gallifrey 1 next month, so Shag and other listeners, keep an eye out for me. I don't know if I will have badge ribbons or not. It depends. Chris, anything from Facebook?
Before we go on to that, I was just going to say on the DWM poll list for 2002, the year that the Trading Futures was published, Trading Futures came 7th out of 10.
Oh.
So, yeah. Interesting. So yeah, on Facebook, we've had quite a few people get in touch. So Kerry Dustin thanked us for the podcast about evolution, and by John Peel, which is what we did last month. And she said, like I felt, that it was better than she'd expected based on previous John Peel novels. But yeah, and she was looking forward to reading Trading Futures because she stopped reading the 8th Doctor books around about The Burning, which is also where I kind of dropped off at the time. And Jeff Elston said that whoever did the reading last month was fantastic and we should have him on again. Jeff did the reading last month. But yeah, so it's good. So yeah, do please get in contact with us on Facebook, like us on iTunes and write reviews, and and if you find us on whatever the Android equivalent is, or cool ways in which you kids find your podcasts, and do please kind of like let us know as well. Yes.
Please, leave us a review on wherever you get your podcast from. We appreciate the feedback, and
we do.
It helps new listeners find us, which is good. On the Twitter side, hello to our new followers there. We have a comment, Chris, praising your new microphone setup, and that you now sound perfectly clear.
Good.
We have a tweet from Ken Major saying that he really enjoyed Evolution last month, and he was excited to hear our thoughts. Adrian Greedham writes in and says he's read Evolution quite a few times, and that it doesn't seem to have a particularly favorable reputation, but he still enjoys the story every time he reads it. And a comment from Richard Booth about the DWM polls that Shag had shared. He writes, "Those pages take me back. Looking at those results again, I'm surprised Falls the Shadow is quite so low. He really liked it himself, but then again, he also liked Transit, Parasite, Time's Crucible, and others languishing at the bottom end of that poll."
I like Time's Crucible, I must say.
I did not at all.
I know.
I can say I can't say that I share that opinion, and I hope that Falls the Shadow never gets picked for the podcast. I feel the same way about it as I did with Crystal Bucephalus in terms of readability. I'm quite happy avoiding novels by Daniel O'Mahony or Mick Lewis. And now that that's out there, I'm sure, Chris, you'll pick one of those sometimes in the future, but such is life. Oh, well.
I've heard disastrous things about Combat Rock, and I believe that's a Mick Lewis story, right?
Yeah, it's one that I've heard awful things about, too.
Yeah, don't. It's too much. I don't want to.
Well, we were asked to go for a bad book, which is why we went for the Crystal Bucephalus. And because also I remember at the time this glowing review in DWM and kind of thinking, really? No, that yeah.
Well, it'd be nice to limit our bad books to like one a year. So,
Yeah, you're gonna have to take a year to get over it. So.
Yeah.
So that brings us to
you saying what it is that we're going to be reading next month.
Yes, it does. So I'm not picking Falls the Shadow.
Okay.
And this pick is partially to coincide with Gallifrey next month and some of the announced guests. But I'm very much missing the 12th Doctor and Bill at the moment, and I didn't really want to read a book featuring Clara. I'm kind of in the she's responsible for too much in the Doctor's life sort of camp. Everything from inspiring him to travel, to picking out his TARDIS for him, to stopping the Time War.
She fixes Dragonfire, though. She makes that cliffhanger and Dragonfire make sense.
That's true. But it also makes me think she's lurking in the shadows, like just out of camera shot for every other story, which is it's a lot of Clara. So I had 3 12th Doctor and Bill books to choose from. I didn't pick Plague City because we had just recently finished a Jonathan Morris novel. And I didn't pick Diamond Dogs because that plot sounded too similar to another book we read about mining in the rings of Saturn. So I went with The Shining Man by Cavan Scott. Ooh. So I'm looking forward to it, and it has a creepy cover that's mysterious and kind of leaves me wanting more. I've read a few of Cavan's other works, including some of his Star Wars stuff and some of his Big Finish stories. So yeah, Shining Man, the 60th book in the BBC New Adventures series, will be our pick for February.
Cool. I've not read any Cavan Scott, but I've met him, and he's lovely. Really nice and really kind. And he's from Bristol as well.
Is he? I've had a feeling that someone I followed on Facebook to Doctor Who lives in Bristol.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure who. Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Yeah, I think he's a Bristol Rovers fan.
Yeah, because Paul McGann lives in Bristol and Colin Baker's family live in Bristol. So I'm just like this going, will they end up just near my house at some point? And it's like, what's going on? Yeah, one day. I do recommend Bristol as a city anyway, just to explore. Because if I remember rightly, in The Earthly Child, which is the Big Finish story, that's where Alex, Susan's son, wants to go to uni or something, or college. So I always felt like there should be more Bristol-based things in stories. And I also believe Series 10, the university is supposed to be set in Bristol. Shame they didn't actually use any of Bristol's rich history and the settings and locations, but I can be salty about that another time. But
well, the bridge across from Wales to Bristol is free now. It wasn't.
It is free, so, yes, very free. So that's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had a lovely time.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much, Sophie, for joining us, and you're welcome back whenever you want to read another Doctor Who book and talk to us about it. So.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yes, and we have new Doctor Who to look forward to.
We do.
Yes, the only new Doctor Who on TV for 2019, it would appear.
Can you remind listeners, too, where they can find Mild Curiosities?
Yeah, of course. So Mild Curiosities can be found on mildcuriosities.bigcartel.com. That's where you can find all the information for pre-ordering and obtaining a digital download of the Mild Curiosities fanzine about Ian and Barbara, which includes myself and the lovely Chris. So, and lots of other lovely people like Paul Mars and John Dolney and some other fabulous artists and writers that you can grow to love just as much. So please check it out, because it's been 6 months of hard work and fear and all sorts of things. And just want people to give it a read and let us know what they think. We do have a Goodreads as well. So if you do end up reading it and you'd like to review it, please do. We want to get people to explore the stories. And there is, I don't know if Chris knows this yet. I don't know how far he's read into the book, if he's seen it. There's a story in there which is 20k. So it's like a proper long adventure. It's amazing. Yeah. Written by a friend of mine, which is inspired directly from the Fantastic Four. So if you're into the Fantastic Four and you're into Doctor Who and you like Ian and Barbara, seriously, it is the book for you. So that's the story for you anyway.
That sounds like a Venn diagram I want to live in.
Do check it out.
Yeah. I'm scared it's not good. I don't want to read people's reviews of my work. That's what I do. I review other people's work. It's not fair.
You have to read it. I can read it and let you know it's safe to check.
Yes, please.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. Thanks again, Sophie, for joining us. And until next month, I've been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London.
And I'm Sophie Iles from Bristol. Thank you.
Happy reading.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Special thanks to George C. Music for use of their song, Doctor Who Theme, Swing Jazz Version. You can follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast and like us on Facebook. You can support the show by leaving us a rating and review on iTunes. You can contact the show by emailing your thoughts to andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. And until next month, happy reading.
He'd grabbed a handful of the back of Milady's sweatshirt. He'd grabbed a handful of the back of Milady's He'd grabbed a handful of the back of Milady's sweatshirt.
Cool. Well, that was wonderful.
Oh, that was so fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Matt, I don't know whether I should tell you this, because one thing that Matt doesn't like to talk about on the show is he doesn't really get on with Leela. My story was originally a Fourth Doctor and Leela story.
Oh, well, I'm glad you changed it.
Milady was sure the piton. Milady was sure the piton at the end of the line would hold. Milady was sure the piton at the end of the line would hold.